2020. For the record, all city council members are present with the exception of Councilor Arnold, which we expect to have him join us.
I'm here.
All right, thank you. All are in attendance. Move on next. We got members of the staff with us also. I didn't mention that. We appreciate their attendance. I've asked Councilor Hilton if he'll lead us in the pledge in the council meeting. Do you have anything for this meeting for public comment, Shaylee?
I do not.
Okay, just that one letter for the meeting, right? Okay. Move on next. Presentations, reports. I don't have anything for this meeting. Chief Shawley, would you like to maybe mention that heavy rescue thing might be good in this work session rather than the council meeting?
Yeah, I was waiting to hear back officially, but it looks like it's going to happen. The fire chiefs in Weber County have sat down over the last year and developed a program through the county commissioners and with Weber County to start financially supporting the heavy rescue program. And there's going to be 3 primary participants, which will be Ogden, Riverdale, and Weber Fire District, with what we call 3 subcontractors, which will be Roy, South Ogden, and Northview. And those guys, so in the past, we've only been receiving funding from the regional fund, which is about $96,000 for 4 counties. And as you guys know, we've been supplying the heavy rescue here for about 4.5 years. So what this means to Riverdale is the county is going to start helping us through the paramedic fund to fund that heavy rescue for reimbursement on overtime, training, some maintenance, some salaries. There's quite a bit to it. And they're also going to put in there about $100,000 a year for an actual heavy rescue. And that will be stationed at Riverdale. And they're going to pay for that truck.
Congratulations.
So it's good.
Somebody have a comment? Anything else, Chief?
No, I think that's about it, unless you have questions for me on it.
Go ahead.
No, just if you have questions, I'll be happy to answer them. That money hopefully will start coming in January as well.
This is really a great thing. I know Chief Shawley came to WACOG and he organized this, had meetings, talked with all the fire chiefs, got them all on board, even one that we didn't think probably would be on board. And he's really, really done a fantastic job with it. You should be aware of this. This is a great thing for Riverdale as far as funding. Didn't you say there was a stipend also for?
Yeah, they're putting $150 a month per technician into the city fund.
Yeah. So these are all real pluses. So we'll get that. Hopefully everything goes through, but they haven't got anything back, but it sounded really favorable when they.
The nice part is the money's already in the fund. There's no tax increase, and the money will be in the fund for 5 years. So we're asking for a 5-year contract. So there shouldn't be any increase to taxes or anybody's county taxes over it. It's already in the paramedic fund.
Yeah, that's a great thing. Great job, Chief. That's really good. He's always looking to make things better, and he really does. So we appreciate that. Okay, move on to City Administration Report. Mr. Kobe, do you have anything for this meeting?
No, I don't have anything for this meeting. I think we're all up to speed on what's going on and things around the world. So if you have any questions for me, let me know.
Do you have any questions for Mr. Kobe on the City Administration Report? That's quite a job on that report this month. Boy, there's a lot of information in there, and thanks to each of you and the staff that's puts that in. Boy, there's I looked through that, read through a lot of it. There's really a lot of detailed information for the council to look at and read. So we appreciate you doing it. Move on next to the consent items. That's to approve the meeting minutes for both the work session and the regular session for December 1st, 2020. Do you have any changes or correction to the minutes at this point? Seeing none, we'll move on to the action items. Action item number 1, consideration of resolution 2020-25. This is a line item adjustment to the general fund budget. Mr. Carden.
Thank you, Mayor. So if you remember, the state code allows us, as long as we don't increase our budget, to do what's called a line item adjustment. So we can basically shift money from different places within one fund as long as we don't increase anything. And so what we're basically doing here is, if you remember a couple meetings ago, we asked you to substantially dedicate our public safety and other employees associated with the CARES funding. So we're able to use that funding to help pay for some of their wages. And then basically we're able to use the unrestricted, in this case, like sales tax revenue, for other purposes. And so we wanted to use those for things that are associated with COVID. So if our auditors had any questions or concerns about the wages, that we had other things that we had paid for associated with that. The reason we're doing it this way is because there's a time constraint of having everything done by December 30th. And so this allows us to not have that same time constraint. So basically what we're doing is moving some money from police wages into a different account. And what we'll do is we'll still pay for those police wages. We'll just allocate those to CARES Act accounts. And then this $215,000 we'll be able to use for other purposes. And they're identified in the packet. And some of those, like the next agenda item, is with a community center bathroom remodel. So we're going to allocate $125,000 to that. A lot of that allows us to have touchless fixtures and those kind of things and clean the bathroom better. And then we have way less volume of patrons at the community center right now. And so it's a good time to do those things. We're going to allocate $40,000 to Public Works. They want to do some things with their break room, another room to enlarge it, basically just take down a wall or two and redo that area so that it's bigger, so that it's big enough that they can actually have a break room where people can eat lunch. Because right now they're having to spread out and outside and various things so that they can social distance while they eat lunch. $30,000 would be for the police for a throw bot, and that's basically kind of the chief can talk about it, but it's like a little robot, remote controlled car, drone thing that they can throw into a house, and then they can use it to communicate with the people inside so that they don't have to get as close. And then some money for they're doing a little bit of work to their conference room so that they can spread out for presentations and those kind of things. And then fire would like $20,000 for some lockers that they have out in their bays so they don't have to bring potentially contaminated PPE and clothing into the fire station. It can just stay right out in the bays. And then also some plumbing for like touchless water fixtures and those kind of things. So that's why we're doing this line item adjustment. And that's what it's for. I'm happy to answer any questions. We have done these before. The last time was in 2018. We usually don't do them unless like it's kind of an emergency or we already had the money in the budget. But in this case, we did. So I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Okay, seeing none, we'll move on to
Just wondering what the dollar amount would be, the total dollar amount in the CARES Act that Riverdale City is receiving?
So this isn't in the CARES Act. This is separate from that. But the total CARES Act that the city received was just over 700,000, and it was based upon population. So we didn't get near as much as a lot of our neighbors because, like Roy, I think they got $1 million, like 1.1 million every distribution. But it was because of their population that they got so much more than us. So.
Still helps though, right?
Right, and we've been able to do a lot of really good projects with it and things that I don't know that we necessarily would have. Some of these, like the bathroom remodel at the community center, is something that we potentially would have done at some point, but like the public works building and talking to Shawnee's like, I don't think we would have ever done that, but I think long term we'll really like it because it'll be more of like a training room and just a bigger area, a bigger, nicer space for them. And so it's worked out really well for the city.
I think Cody's done a really tremendous job with this. I know some of the things they come up with at first, I was a little concerned with them, but after I talked with him, and I know he's talked with finance people from other cities all along the Wasatch Front, in fact, on using these funds, and it's kind of remarkable what he's done, worked with Rich, Public Works and them, and finding these projects, police department, and this would have probably gone unnoticed and wouldn't even have picked up on it if he hadn't been knowledge about how to use that CARES Act money and trade it with our funds to pay wages, then use the wages to do these projects. So thanks, Cody. That's a real neat thing you've done here, and it's going to really benefit the city. So we appreciate
Thanks, Mayor.
it. You're welcome. Okay, move on to action item 3. This is consideration of ordinance 930, amending the zoning of property in the city land use map to change the land use designation of land located at 1526, 1528, 1560, and 1580 West Ritter Drive from agricultural A1 and low impact transition overlay zoning to multiple family residential R4 zoning. Mr. Eggett.
Thank you, Mayor. As you noted, Riverdale Living LLC is the petitioner. Josh and Lynn Yates are the representatives for that group. Josh is joining us for the work session and I anticipate he'll be with us for the main session as well. They're requesting the rezone, as you noted, at those addresses from A1 to A1 and low impact transition overlay zoning to R4 multiple family residential zoning to allow for the future potential development of some form of multiple family residential projects on this property. As you noted in the packet, or you see in the packet, townhomes are kind of the concept right now.
Did you call me?
Are you there?
Yeah, did you call me?
Josh, you're not muted.
I was just wondering.
Thanks. Neighboring properties to the north are zoned R5. Properties to the east are zoned A1 and CP3. Properties to the south are zoned with A1 zoning, and properties to the west are zoned with C3. So that's kind of what's around it. Request is for approximately 5.67 acres along Ritter Drive and near to Freeway Park Drive and in proximity to 1500 West. As required by state code and to allow for public commentary, a public hearing was scheduled, advertised in accordance with state notice requirements, and thereafter held on November 24th, wherein we opened it up to the public to receive and consider public commentary during that meeting. During the meeting, we did have 2 residents attend who did communicate their thoughts and comments on the record. Hopefully some of you had a chance to see those comments during that meeting. Following the public hearing in the matter, the Planning Commission discussed the applicant's request, and the applicant shared their comments and thoughts about the request. And the conclusion of that, the Planning Commission made a recommendation to City Council to deny the submitted rezone application based upon the main finding was it not being compliant with the current land use master plan, reflecting a low density residential use requirement or expectation for those properties. So at this point, the City Council is coming forward, your body, to consider the request, and obviously your options are to approve with modifications. You can table it or you can deny it with the appropriate findings of fact to support those, that whatever decision you take. Current ownership is Riverdale Living LLC and L. Young Polson Trust et al. Some of the properties are currently rental use residences on both the Riverdale living property and the Polson Trust property. And then the remaining of it has an unoccupied home, and otherwise the properties aren't being used for any specific purpose. General plan guidance for the area. The general plan use, as I noted, is residential low density, and the proposed rezone request and project concept requested would not be in current compliance with this land use designation, and therefore would not be supported in this area by the land use master plan element of the Riverdale general plan. In your packet, you have two ordinances. Mr. Brooks has prepared one to approve the rezone request, one to deny the rezone request. They're both numbered the same, so be aware of that. Make sure whatever you decide to do, it's clear which one you're going to utilize with your decision making. Following that, you'll see a representation of the area. I did forget to include, there's a little finger sliver that should actually be LIT currently on my map as it goes to the east of Cherry Creek Apartments. That should be also part of this rezone request, and you do see that reflected in the documents the applicant submitted. So that's my error in not making that more clear. I apologize for that, but there is a little bit more to it than what I reflected on that map drawing. You'll see the decision of the Planning Commission as part of the application, a letter from the applicant, the initial letter that went to the Planning Commission, the legal documentation outlining the area, the fee paid, all the documentation showing that the public hearing requirements were met and when notice went out, signage on the property when it went up, and certification of that signage, and then publication in the newspaper showing proof of that publication. Following that, there's a secondary letter that was submitted to the mayor and requested by the applicant to be included in the packet for tonight's meeting by the applicants, and that is in your packet now. So hopefully you had a chance to look that over as requested by the applicant. And then following that, they've provided some multifamily concepts of what the requested townhomes could look like were they do get a rezone and move forward with some kind of development and what a layout might look like. And I'll defer to the applicants to discuss further how they want anything associated with those drawings, but those were provided prior to the city council meeting this evening. So with that, that's all that's in your packet, and I would defer for any questions or comments at this time, or we can wait till the main discussion later. Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Council.
Okay, seeing none, we'll move on to action item 4. Discussion, consideration to approve the 2021 annual city council calendar. Ms. Nay. It's got Nay, but it's Evans.
It's Evans on here. I need to update it on this account.
That's all right.
So I had it all updated from, I just go off my calendar and do the dates that I see. But Bill told me that the city council wanted to go over it a little bit. So I just thought we'd put it in there and we can go over the dates, and then I can get it amended however it needs to be done.
Okay. Let's see how much time, if we have any extra time, we'll come back, see what we can get through that in this work session. So do you have any questions or comments at this point on that, or do you want to just wait till we come back? Seeing none, move on to action item 5, consideration to set a public hearing for budget amendment for the CARES Act projects. Mr. Cody, Mr. Carden, is that you? Or is it Mr.
And we actually, no, that's fine. I can talk about it. We actually don't need that agenda item. Number 1, replace that. And so we can just scratch that. We were able to do it as a line item adjustment rather than setting a public hearing. And we thought that was better, just trying to get projects started a little quicker.
So we'll just delete that item, right? Okay. Make a note of that, Ms. Evans, that item 5 was deleted, okay, from the agenda. Okay, move on to discretionary items. Any discretionary items for this meeting? We get a motion to adjourn this meeting.
So moved. Or are we going to go back and talk about the
Well, we still got the RDA agenda.
Oh, okay.
Mayor,
Yeah.
Mayor, My system, my computer shut down, and so I missed Mr. Eggett's presentation. And so hopefully he'll redo that during the regular meeting, please.
Okay, we'll have him do that. I think he would most of it anyway, make sure he does. So I saw you'd left the meeting. I wondered if that was just technical difficulty or what it was.
And I'm having technical difficulties even now. You're cutting in and out the picture, and I'm not sure why. But anyway, if I fall off, I'll jump right back on.
All right, if you have to give us a call, that seems to work sometimes.
All right.
All right, thanks, Bart. Let's have a motion to adjourn. We had it from Mr. Mitchell. Would have a second?
Second?
Have a second from Mr. Ellis. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? This meeting's adjourned. For City Council, move into the RDA agenda. I guess we have to, well, call it to order for the RDA board, do it a little different tonight. So for the record, all board members are present. We don't have any public comment for this one, right, Shaylee, tonight, RDA?
Right, I don't have anything.
Presentation reports, nothing there. Consent items, consideration to approve the meeting minutes from June 16th, 2020, the RDA meeting. Is there any comments or changes on that meeting? Okay, move on to action item 1, discussion, consideration to approve the 2021 annual RDA calendar. Ms. Evans?
So same thing. I just wanted to make sure we go over it and get the correct dates, and if I need to amend anything, I can.
Why don't we do that for this meeting? Should we get that one out of the way?
Okay.
Want to go ahead and let's talk about that one. I think normally we just make it the second city council meeting each month. Well, let's just say the third Tuesday, because that may be different. We may do some changes here on March when we get to our city council. So why don't we just look at the third Tuesday of each month for being our RDA meeting? Does anybody see a problem with that? You might look at that between now and the city council meeting and see if that works for you, your dates you have. But that might be the easiest way to do it. That's kind of how we had this past year. So. Okay. Have a meeting to adjourn this meeting. Have a motion.
So moved.
Okay,
Second.
Councilor Mitchell. Second was who?
Hilton.
Hilton. Thank you, Steve. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? It's unanimous to adjourn. Going to go back. I think we've got about 5 minutes here, 4 or 5 minutes. Let's go back. Are we all right to do that, Steve Brooks? Just go back in that work session and work that action item. Let's go back to action item 4, consideration to approve the 2021 annual city calendar. Ms. Evans. You want to go through that? We can change it now. Maybe save doing that later. Save us a few minutes.
Okay. So I have all the dates in there. I just know that we wanted to do strategic planning and decide whether we're doing Saturdays, Tuesdays, and everything like that. So let me pull it up and I can hurry and just edit it while we go along. So let's see. So I sent the draft out, and so I just figured it'd be easier what dates I need to change. So from the council and staff, do you have like certain dates you want me to add or amend?
Got anything for January? How about February?
So we've usually done the first strategic planning meeting in February, and that works out good because that gives me a little more time to get the budget ready and get all those things in there. So if we could do strategic planning in February this year, like we have in the past, that would be good. I don't know, we've talked in the past about doing it on a weekday night or a Saturday. It doesn't matter to me. I don't know what your preferences are, if we're trying to do something over WebEx versus in person, or what you want to do that direction, but that's the only input I have.
It takes about a half a day on Saturday if you're new this time. I don't think anybody
Mayor.
is. Yeah.
So I was the one that kind of started this conversation, and I had just wondered if maybe we could do it on a weeknight after a meeting or something. And Counselor Arnold called me the other night. He was actually just asking me what was going on at the community center because there was a whole bunch of cars there, and he's like, "Hey, you know what's going on?" And I just in the conversation, I said, "Hey, would you mind if we had a little discussion about the schedule for the meetings?" And he was like, "Yeah, sure." So, you know, I just thought it would be nice if we could do it on a Tuesday night, but I'm kind of feeling some pushback that people are like, "Oh, that's not enough time." And so if it's not, I was just trying to free up some Saturdays for folks, but you know, if it's too much for people, then Saturdays are probably still just fine.
Well, some of you work Saturday. I know you do. So that would help you, wouldn't it?
Yeah, I work occasionally on a Saturday, and so it just, I mean, you know, that May one especially, like, it's if you know, it's I might want to go do something with my kids or something, and it's completely selfish, you know. And so I don't want to put everybody else out, but if everybody had the same feeling, then I just wanted to open up the discussion.
Why don't let's go to the council. How many's in favor of having it on Saturday mornings like we have? How many's in favor of having it on Tuesday night after a meeting? Okay, I see two hands. How about Hilton? How about you?
I'm good either way.
Okay. Mr. Stevens?
Yes.
Which way do you prefer?
Oh, Saturday.
Saturday? Okay, you've got one for Saturday, two for evenings, and who else hasn't voted? Mr. Ellis?
There was three for evenings, and Steve was either way.
Okay, let's go with the evenings then. We got three and two that's impartial, and we got one that would rather do Saturdays, so.
Mayor, just one quick comment. I think one thing we could do on these particular meetings is establish them at 5:30 and have them just set aside for these meetings, that if someone wants to attend or watch them or whatever. But if we started them at 5:30 and had these as strategic planning meetings on a specific Tuesday in February or something like that, that we could actually start the meeting, because the amount of, sometimes we just don't have the agenda items. If we do have the agenda items, we can do it. But if we make it a strategic planning meeting that starts at 5:30, I think, you know, with preparation from staff, that we could actually do it. You know, instead of trying to drag things out or something like that, it could be start at 5:30 and be done easily in the evening.
And not have the city council meeting.
Right. I know other cities have done that. I went to a Plain City Council meeting, but it was actually a work strategy meeting that they actually have planned for their strategic planning meeting. So it's just it's a scheduled strategic planning meeting on a normal time. And it'd have to be, you know, Steve would have to, you know, do we have to have the meetings on the first and third Tuesdays of the month, or can we schedule, you know, a couple strategic planning meetings in February and May, August, whatever. Anyway, just a thought.
Yeah, that'd be real easy to do. Of course, Mike, you got to be in two different places, don't you? If you got planning commission that night.
Not on the 5th Tuesday though, Mayor. Obviously, I do on the 2nd and 4th, or yeah, the 2nd and 4th. I would have planning commission at that same time.
That 5th Tuesday, the 5th Tuesday's in March, Mike. This is a different story. This is on a.
Oh yeah, that would definitely.
What I'm saying is to replace the city council meeting on a first or third Tuesday with a strategic planning meeting. So it's instead of being a normal city council meeting, it would be a strategic planning meeting in those strategic spots.
How many city councils in favor of that? It sounds like a good idea. Got two thumbs. How about Mr. Stevens?
He's still muted.
Bart, are you in favor of that? I think you're muted.
Yeah, no.
You're not in favor of that? Okay, how about Mr. Ellis?
I'm in favor. I really appreciate what Cody does to streamline strategic planning meeting. He has it well planned out. All the facts and figures are in place, so I think we could do that.
All right, so we got 3 in favor of doing that. Let's go with that. We'll try to, we'll just have to look at agenda items, Mike, and others that mainly affects you if we have things that need to be done. So let's go ahead and try that. I think that's a great idea. We can do that. Just plan a strategic planning meeting on that evening. Which one we want to do in February, Cody? Do you have a preference? First one?
It doesn't matter. We can do it. There's advantages both ways. So the first one's great.
Let's do the first one. It might give you more time.
Okay.
So we'll call that February 2nd.
If that's the first Tuesday, it would.
That's what I'm looking at.
Okay. So we okay with that? Any other changes in February? I don't have a calendar here with me, so. Okay, for March, we talked today. I had a meeting with Mr. Kobe, Mr. Fred Philpott from Lewis, Young, Robertson, and Birmingham. And who else was with us? Mike, was it you, Mike?
No, it was Cody.
It was Cody. I'm sorry, Cody. But we've got this cliff coming in 2030 when things are going to change for the city. We're going to lose, at least at this point, unless we lobby and are successful. We'll use the 0.2%. And I think that's about $1.5 million that we'll lose a year. So we talked today, I kind of went over what the previous plan was that Roger was working with them, and we're overdue, aren't we, on the city council? Just noticed that. Anyway, we'll go back and finish this. But anyway, talking with them, we decided we would present to you tonight. We would like to do on the 2nd of March. We would like to do the this meeting. What are you going to call that? Emery had a name for it, but it's just a meeting really to talk about city's financial situation and with the upcoming cliff in 2030. Do you have a name for that, Cody?
We've kind of referred to it as our 2030 plan, and then it's kind of a revenue diversification review.
Why don't we do that on 2030? And you can think about this. You don't have to prove it till the council meeting. But we looked at doing that meeting on the 2nd. And then on the 9th is it? Or the 16th? The 16th, we would have our regular city council meeting and also have a regular city council meeting on the 30th, okay? And we wouldn't have that unless the agenda forced us to do it, so. that was a proposal. Let's go back to city council and get that meeting started. We're a little overdue. Then we'll start out. Okay. I'd like to welcome you to our city council meeting this evening, Tuesday, December 15th, 2020. And call this meeting to order. For the record, all city council members are present, as are members of the staff. We apologize for the late start. Got tied up in the work session a little bit with some things we're working on. So I've asked Councillor Hilton if he would lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance this evening.
Okay, would you please rise with me and recite the pledge? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States
of America
and to the republic
for which it stands,
one nation
under God,
indivisible,
with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. Move on next to our moment of silence. We'd like to take a moment of silence at this time as we pause to remember those that are serving in our military, along with our police and firefighters who are ready and willing to put themselves in harm's way for our behalf, protect our many freedoms and our rights here in our communities. We'd also like to remember those medical people who are working during this pandemic and our city councils that make important decisions this evening. And we take a moment of silence. Thank you very much. Move on next to public comment. This is a period of time when you can provide any suggestions or ideas that you might have to the city council. If you're there in person, you're here at the meeting tonight, you're welcome to make comments. If there's any, do we have anyone, Shaylee, for here tonight?
You want to make a public comment, right? Mm-hmm. Okay. Yes, I have one.
Okay.
I'll be quick.
No, you're good. Go ahead.
Hi, my name is Janet Deshaw. You probably you know that. I'm here on behalf of myself and my daughter Melissa Carey, who is at basketball tonight. But we just wanted to let you know that we're watching this Ritter Drive thing. And R4 to us, R4 is just way too many people. And I feel like we'd be starting at zero again on Ritter Drive if we allow that many more people to move in. And I mean, I've said everything I've had to say to you guys before about the safety and everything else. So I just wanted to let you know that we're watching that and what our opinion is. Thank you.
Thank you, Janet.
Do you want to say anything? Okay. And I have one more.
Okay.
Hi, my name's Dylan Yates, and I'm one of the owners of the property on Ritter Drive that's being considered this evening, and I would hope that you would approve it. We just we're watching that very closely. We've been involved with it for 4 years, and I think it's entitled to have a change there, and we'd just like you to consider that. Thank you.
Thanks, Dylan. Do you have anything else, Shaylee?
I have a letter. Hold on one second. Let me grab it. Sorry, guys. What did you say?
Shayla, did Steve get to look at that?
Yes, he did.
Oh.
Okay, so this is from Amy Ann Spires. Good evening, City Council. As the chairman of the Planning Commission, I have read the letter presented to the council in the packet. I am very disappointed and frustrated with the comments made by the applicants to the City Council. The Planning Commission has based their decisions on all factual findings. I find that the remarks stated in the letter are not fairly representative of the Planning Commission. Furthermore, the Planning Commission has reviewed this project several times throughout the years, and this has affected the Planning Commission's position relative to this rezone. The Planning Commission has submitted a unanimous decision to deny this rezone application as presented tonight. I appreciate the City Council taking this into consideration. It is our hope of our unanimous recommendation will be taken seriously by the City Council in making their decision tonight. Thank you.
Okay.
And that's all I have.
Okay, do you have anything, Rich? Any text messages or anything?
Mayor, I have not received any text messages.
All right, thank you very much. Okay. Move on next to presentations and reports. I only have one item, and this is just kind of an information thing. I think you all know about the Riverdale Landing. That's the area where Krispy Kreme is. Recently on the Planning Commission agenda, they had Raising Cane's Chicken on there. We had the Design Review Committee here this past week. And, met with them, and that was approved. But that one most people are aware of. We put the word out. Did notice the other night driving by, my wife actually picked it up, but there's 2 additional businesses. Mr. Hansen's put on that sign. It's shows that Cafe Rio is coming to Riverdale, and also Mobetta's. Okay, so that's from D. Hansen, the developer there. So just thought I'd let you know that. That's public information now. So I know we've been working on that for some time, but just let you know that. So that's there. The sign is up. Okay, move on next to the city administration report. Mr. Kobabe.
You have all of the staff's reports in your packets, and as you can see, everybody's been working very hard. We are a city that never sleeps and never tires, and we love serving the people that are here in Riverdale, people that live here especially, but people that come to do work and shop and spend some time, and we're grateful for them, and we're grateful for staff this time of year especially. They sacrifice so much, and as you can see from the staff reports, we are busy people, and we're working hard to make sure that the city stays amazing. So that's it, unless anyone has any questions.
Okay, no questions. So move on next to the consent items. Consideration to approve the meeting minutes from December 1st, 2020, the City Council work session, and also the City Council regular session on the same day. Do we have any changes or corrections? Seeing none, do we have a motion on the consent items?
Motion to approve consent items.
Second.
We have a motion, Mr. Mitchell, a second by Councilor Ellis. Any discussion on the motion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? It's unanimous in favor. The minutes are approved. Move on to action items. This is action item 1. This is consideration of resolution 2020-25. This is the line item adjustment to the general fund budget. Mr. Carden from Business Administration.
Thank you, Mayor. So as we talked in the work session, this is just to adjust our budget. We are not increasing the budget. We're just reallocating some resources that were provided by the CARES funding, that we can use those funds to do some other projects within the city, the unrestricted funding. It's identified in the packet on page 32 is the schedule where we're going to take 215,000 and move it around, and those projects will impact community services, public works, police, and fire. And I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Do you have any questions for Mr. Carden?
Mayor,
Go ahead.
move to approve resolution 2020-25 as stated within the packet with additional information that Mr. Carden provided on the record in the work session.
Second.
Is that Mr. Hilton? Yeah, Mr. Arnold made the motion. Who did the second?
Mr. Hilton.
Got Mr. Hilton for a second. Any discussion on the motion? Ms. Evans, would you poll the council on the resolution, please?
Councilmember Ellis?
Aye.
Councilmember Mitchell?
Aye.
Councilmember Arnold?
Aye.
Councilmember Hilton?
Aye.
Councilmember Stevens?
Aye.
Unanimous in favor. Thank you very much. Move on to action item 2. This ties in with the last one. Consideration of resolution 2020-26, awarding a bid for the community center bathroom remodel to the only bidder, Reynolds, in the amount of $110,547, with the total budget not to exceed $116,000. Mr. Carden and Mr. Taylor.
So let me just say a tiny bit here at the beginning. So we got, I know Rich worked with the bids and things. We only got one bid back. Under our emergency parameters and things, we can use that single bid.
Hey, we got a lot of feedback, and you might mute your mics if you're not talking. We got it. Sound like we're good now. Go ahead, Cody.
So we only had one bidder respond, and so that's why we have them in here. The other thing I did is we've done on the last few public works projects, the 116,000 represents about a 5% contingency. The contractor does not know that we're building that into it. The only reason that I did that is just in case, as they get tearing into the walls and those kind of things, if they need to do something, that we can keep this project moving rather than have to sit on it for 2 weeks and have the bathrooms potentially like tore up and tied up for 2 weeks until we could come back to a city council meeting. And that's why that is in there. Just one last thing, the contractor, Jeff Woody, the building inspector, he works with a lot of contractors, and this was one that he recommended and that he felt like would do a good job. And so that's why we have a bid from them.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Carden. Do you have any questions for Mr. Carden? I just, go ahead.
Move to approve resolution 2020-26 with the bid amount to Reynolds Construction, $110,547, with the total budget not to exceed $116,000.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Mr. Arnold and a second by Mr. Hilton. Is that right, Steve?
Correct.
Okay. Any discussion on the motion? Mrs. Evans, would you poll the council, please?
Bart's raising his hand, Mayor.
Bart's raising his hand. Bart has
Do you
a
have
comment.
Do you have something, Bart? Mr. Stevens? We might have lost him.
He's there. I see him.
Can you hear us, Bart?
He's okay.
You there, Bart? Anybody hearing him?
No.
Maybe that was a desperate plea for help as he went down. I don't know.
Hey, Bart, did you just want to hear from Rich? Is that? Oh, he's gone.
He was struggling to mute and unmute, and he could never unmute.
I think he was saying something about it being such a great motion that he.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yeah, we can. Did you
Okay,
have
maybe not.
something, Bart?
Okay. Couple of things. I was around 20 plus years ago when the community center was built. And it was built partly as a recreation facility and also as a emergency management congregating point. Is that maybe Chief Shawley can expound on that a little bit? But one of the things that was mentioned. Hello?
You're still.
You can hear me?
Yes.
Okay. One of the things that was being stated back 20 years ago was that they should have put showers there, because if you've got a kitchen there, and the purpose for the kitchen was as emergency management place of refuge in case as a congregating point, but there were never any showers. Now, I don't know if that was lost, and we're not even looking at that facility in that capacity anymore, and therefore we are just using it as a rec and a community center. But it would be nice, this is granted after the fact, you've got a bid, and I know you've got a timeline. It would have been nice to have some sort of design to incorporate showers. And I'll leave it at that, because anyway, chances are you probably aren't going to look at that, and probably that would have needed to be brought up at a future time. But showers for an emergency situation, I mean, obviously that's why we have the kitchen there, to have some sort of hygiene facility. That's all. Thank you.
Okay, I know, and I'll let Chief Shawley comment on this, but I know in discussions I've been in, I know it's to be used as a dispatch point during an emergency, as far as sending workers out, I can't think of the right term for that, but they have, or what they've looked at as far as keeping people and housing people, it would be used like the Stake Center. There's churches nearby that have showers in their restrooms. So that is an alternative. Chief, do you remember anything on this?
Yeah, we're currently only using it as a staging area for volunteers, and that way we can disperse the volunteers, check them in, check them out of the community center, which the kitchen comes in handy, but it's not required to have showers. Our actual evacuation sites right now are the high schools and junior high schools for occupancy levels. That's what the county has chose to do. We don't even have any church sites right now, the official county evacuation points. Simply because of size of what we'd be doing with or dealing with. So hope that kind of clears things up a little
bit. That helped, Bart. That's a good thought, though. That's a good point to bring up.
Mayor, can I make one more comment on the showers?
Go ahead, Rich.
If we were to put showers in at the facility over here, we would reduce the number of bathroom stalls that we have in those bathrooms. And that would in turn reduce our capacity of our building for everything. And so without adding additional square footage, fitting the showers in gets a little bit tricky with capacity and bathroom requirements.
Okay. Any other comments or discussion? Okay, I think we're safe to go with the way we're going and just use that for dispatch for emergency purposes. So we had a motion, we had a second, we had discussion. Ms. Ney, would you poll the council on resolution 2026?
Councilmember Arnold?
Aye.
Councilmember Hilton?
Aye.
Councilmember Stevens?
Aye.
Councilmember Ellis,
Aye.
Councilmember Mitchell.
Aye.
Sound like it's unanimous in favor, and I just wanted to I mentioned this in the work session, but thank you, Cody. We were able to use CARES funding, what, couple $100,000? How much money was there altogether?
In total, it was about 700,000.
So you're able to use that much by using some of the CARES funding. We were able to do these extra projects in the city, and this really saves us a lot of money and provides us a lot of benefit. But we appreciate it, Cody, what you've done with this. So just put that on the record for City Council. It's public meetings. Thank you very much. Going to move on to action item number 3. This is discussion of ordinance 930, amending the zoning of property in the city's land use map to change the land use designation of land located at 1526, 1528, 1560, and 1580 West Ritter Drive from agricultural A1 and low impact transitional overlay LIT zoning to multiple family residential R4 zoning. Mr. Agate.
Thank you, Mayor. And I'll try to hit all the key points. If I miss something along the way you want to ask about, feel free to do so after, and I can try to elucidate more on it. The petitioner, as you noted, is Riverdale Living LLC. They'll be represented tonight by Josh and Dylan Yates. Dylan did give a comment during the public comment, so he is there present, and Josh is with us on the line. You noted all the properties that are being rezoned in the header for this item, and the rezone is from A1 agricultural and low impact transition overlay zoning to multiple family residential R4 zoning to allow for the possibility of future development of some form of a multiple family residential development project on the property. You'll see in the packet near the end, the applicants are desiring at this time conceptually to look at some form of townhome project development for this property if this zone were passed, this rezone request. Neighboring properties around the property are currently zoned as R5. Properties to the east are zoned A1 and CP3. Properties to the south are zoned with A1. Properties to the west are zoned with C3 zoning. The request is approximately 5.767 acres of land, and it's located along Ritter Drive with proximity to Freeway Park Drive and 1500 West. Those properties could also be affected by the proposed rezone request in some format. As required by state code and to allow for public commentary, a public hearing was scheduled, advertised in meeting state notice requirements, and thereafter held on November 24th, 2020 with the Planning Commission to allow for public comment to be provided relative to this requested rezone amendment. We did have public commentary during that meeting. We had Ms. Carey and the same resident who provided commentary this evening at the City Council was also present in that meeting. Both she and her daughter, Melissa Carey, provided commentary during the Planning Commission meeting regarding this rezone request. At the conclusion of the public hearing and following that, the Planning Commission had some discussion with the applicant. The applicant presented their request for the project and their ideas on what might happen. Following those discussions, the Planning Commission submitted a motion for a recommendation to deny the rezone application. It was, as noted in Ms. Spires' letter, a unanimous recommendation, and it's before the council tonight. Action that could be taken tonight clearly could be to accept the rezone request. You could accept it with modifications or requested changes. Could table it if there's good reason to do so, or deny the matter. Just make sure that the appropriate findings of fact are well explained to support your decision. The property is listed in the county records under Riverdale Living LLC and L. Leon Polson Trust et al. Some of those properties that are in ownership of both those groups are currently being used as rental use residences, and there's a existing unoccupied home also on the Riverdale Living properties, and the remainder is not really being used for anything specifically. Reasoning for the Planning Commission's decision is tied to the general plan guidance. The general plan guidance is that this area is currently set as residential low density. Proposed rezone request and project concept requested use would not be in current compliance with this land use designation and therefore would not be supported in this area by the land use master plan element of the Riverdale general plan. That was the finding that the planning commission utilized in their decision making for their recommendation city council. Following the executive summary, you'll see there's 2 ordinance documents. One is to be supportive of or approve the rezone request. The second one is to not approve. So make sure whatever motion is made, if you're using either of those, to be clearly indicating which of the 2 ordinance documents you'll be utilizing for your decision making this evening. Following that, you have a map product in your packet. The map I did fail to change, but there's a very small sliver that's bounded by a solid black line in the R5 zone that continues up northward. That property area is also actually supposed to be LIT on the zoning map, so that's an area I need to fix. But that area is part of this rezone request, and you'll see that in the applicant's packet that follows that map. Following that is the application and the, again, decision shown from the Planning Commission, as well as a letter that was originally sent to the Planning Commission with the application, as well is the request for this rezone from the applicant. And then the legal documentation showing what areas they're being requested to rezone that they've outlined in yellow, and it says A, area A. The fee has been paid. The notice checklist showing all notice that has been required has been fulfilled for the Planning Commission public hearing. There's the signage indication showing the certificate of the notice and the signs that have been placed on site, and then the advertisement both in the newspaper as well in the building, and those documents that were fulfilled in that advertising. Following that has been a new letter that's been provided to Mayor Searle and the city and requested by the applicant to be submitted for tonight's review with the city council relative to the decision from the Planning Commission and some thoughts from the applicants and their feelings regarding that process. And then following that, you'll see some renderings of what the townhomes might look like should this rezone occur and a project be considered to move forward with a site concept. That would be kind of the type of home product they'd be looking at, as well as there's a conceptual site plan of how the area might be laid out for these type of uses. So with that, we do have the applicants present, and I would defer to Mayor and Council for any questions you may have of me or the applicants. Thank you.
Do you have any questions or comments? Mr. Ellis.
One of the questions I have is, the last time we had you before the city council, you wanted to put the assisted living center in there. You made a zoning change on that, and you didn't have the financing. Now that you come back before the city council, do you have the financing for such a project, or is this just speculation?
Josh,
can I speak to that, or?
Yeah, Josh, you or Dylan?
Yeah, so we tried to address some of that in the letter, some of the issues we've had there, and part of the reason we went with this particular zoning is because we could do it in case we ran into that issue again, which we don't think that would be possible based on all the conversations we've had with all these same people we were involved in the assisted living. But the reason we went with this particular use is because you can do really small phases, and so it's kind of a surefire way to make it happen. There's enough money already spent by us. There's enough that's already been done there that to produce the equity to do the financing. And so with those smaller phases, that's how we can resolve it under any of these sets of circumstances that we've met with in the past. This is kind of an unusual request. We didn't want to ask for a rezone, but we kind of got pushed into this situation by all that we outlined and experienced, and then with the clincher of the virus, and the previous zoning just was pretty limited in what it allows for. And unfortunately, the main thing that it allows for that we were interested in is targeted by the pandemic, and so it just really puts us in a a bind. And in going with the townhome, it's a lot less units. It's, according to the general plan, it's basically a down zone. And so with the, you know, that had already kind of been addressed in the previous rezone. Sorry, am I going on too far? I can wait and answer other questions.
You're fine, Josh. Go ahead.
So anyway, yeah, I was just gonna say that the general plan, I think, would probably be more applicable if it hadn't already been upzoned to the LIT. And so we're just basically going from what it considers a high density to a moderate to high density. The traffic's going to be the same. I just tried to talk about some of those things in the letter. Again, it's not like we're trying to be critical or anything like that. We're just really in a bind and trying to make this happen the best we can. And you know, it's kind of a last-ditch effort, to be honest.
Thanks, Josh. Any other questions for Mr. Yates? Do you have any for Mr. Eggett? Or?
Yes.
Bart has one.
Go ahead, Mr. Stevens.
Okay, thank you. Couple of things. As I look at the map that was provided in our packet, the lot that which I think is referred to as the old Tolis home, which is where Aunt Nancy's was going to be. Let's see, it's listed here as A1. Now, has it always been A1 because, or did it get changed, or was the change conditional upon construction? Would you please elaborate, Mr. Eggett?
Yes, I can answer that question. So the initial plan over probably 10 years ago, when this was first approved and then the amendment thereafter, was approved to keep the zone A1, but there's a development agreement in place which was then carried over to this project with the Yates, and they understood this as well. Per that development agreement, it was agreed to that zoning of A1 would stay in place until such time construction would commence on the property, at which point then the city, per the development agreement, would pursue the rezone to zone it up to that LIT.
Excuse me, would pursue the what?
The rezone. So the city would do a rezone to low impact transition overlay zoning to then mirror the construction of the product and the final product on site.
Somebody's got their mic unmuted or unmuted. There's a lot of background noise.
I'm going to leave mine unmuted because I want this to be a back and forth, if I could, please.
No, that's fine. You don't have any background noise.
Okay.
Because we're having a time hearing you, so.
I'm sorry, you can hear me?
Well, there's somebody had their unmuted and there was a lot of background noise, so we couldn't hear all of what you said. We got most of it, Bart, but it was getting pretty broke up.
So this is being rezoned then? Is that what I'm, never mind, sorry.
Go ahead, Mike.
No, go ahead, yeah.
So what had happened is the development agreement then was controlling its rezone to LIT overlay zoning. And the trigger was in that development agreement, the actual construction on site commencing. So the Yates family did get a building permit, in fact, for it, but never got to the point of actually starting construction. Had construction commenced, we would have started a rezone process as a city to go forward and rezone that specific Aunt Nancy's property, the Tolis property, to LIT overlay zoning. But obviously, we never got to that benchmark to do that. Therefore, we didn't ever fulfill that component of the development agreement. So that hopefully answers your question.
Well, okay. And the follow-up question would be, when I listened to the Planning Commission and read the draft notes, it was denied, and you asked for a reason, and the reason is it didn't state it didn't meet the general plan. And so were you planning on changing the general plan after the fact? Okay, let's just say it would have gone forward.
Yeah.
Now, if I read it correctly, R4 would have been the appropriate zoning for the care facility, if I read that right. So if this was to go forward, hypothetically, if they would have done things timely, then this would have gone forward. There would have been a rezone, and regardless of what the general plan is. But so that's why I'm a little, to say the planning commission saying, oh, we're going to deny this because it doesn't meet the general plan, but you would have done it had they started. It would have. It doesn't make sense. It's a contradiction. It's however you want to call that.
Yeah.
Okay.
The thought process had been, and again, this goes back to my predecessor, that the general plan would change to mirror the change in land use should the project have moved forward, but it never did. So as a hold pattern and per previous guidance on how this area would operate, that general plan update never occurred because the zoning never occurred. So there was never enough of a triggering to qualify the land use change in the general plan land use map. So as a result, because I guess you could say there wasn't assurances enough, even with a city council a decade ago, this project would happen. This was a way to protect that, because honestly, if this didn't happen, the city leadership at the time didn't want this area to be rezoned for any other use but single family density or assisted living. And so that's how they accomplished that goal, and that's what's been maintained as a tradition for this area up to this point. And that's why we're in this situation that you're now asking about.
Okay. The point, though, is that there was a provision made to change the zone and the general plan to meet the assisted living. Okay.
Right.
All right. New topic. I think myself and a number of people, maybe the mayor, maybe a couple of the other city councils, were on the planning commission. Maybe 10 years ago, maybe less, I don't know, when Mr. Leon Polson presented that he wanted a similar arrangement, because he wanted to, as the assisted living was going to go in, he wanted to take his properties and develop it into an adjacent building that was in keeping, it's like a memory care unit. And he was very much wanting that same arrangement that the Tollus property had, he wanted for his property. And so he was actively involved in, although he wanted to keep it, he wasn't selling his property, he wasn't merging it, but he was actively involved in doing it as a joint type of a venture. And as I look at this now, where his property and those other properties are in a low impact transition overlay zone, but the Tollus property was not. It's still A1. And so I guess where I'm going is the Tollus estate is wanting to be involved in this also. Are all the other property owners, are they wanting to be involved in this? I mean, even though we're represented by the petitioner of Mr. Yates, are all the other people, the property owners besides the Polson family, are they on board with this development and are putting up capital to make it happen, Mr. Yates?
Yes. Steve Polson is representing his father, Leon, and they're very much involved. And honestly, I should have made more of an effort to get him into this meeting. He missed the planning commission meeting. He had a conflict, but they've been involved every step of the way. They still own their property. They're they're participating. They're doing all that they can. They've got money into it. So I guess the answer is yes.
How about the other property owners?
Likewise, that's the Barlow family. Interestingly, 2 people have passed away since this started. We started about 3 years ago. Leon Polson's wife passed away about a year ago. And then Duncan Barlow, one of the family members on the other end, passed away from cancer as well. But the other members of his family are still involved. I talked to Stuart Barlow today. We have the note on it, so we're the listed owner. They are the note holder. And
okay, is that Stuart Barlow, the eye, nose, ear, nose, and throat doctor?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay. So there's the Barlows have a lot of money. Duncan, I'm sure, is he's a real estate guy. I didn't realize that that was the owners on the other end. There's a lot of money with the Barlows.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, he's a former state senator and so on and so forth. Okay,
mm-hmm.
With that, I'm not concerned about the money portion because anyway. That said, now, just out of curiosity, and this is for Mr. Eggett, could this low-impact transitional be extended to include the Tultz property, which is A1?
That was always the arrangement with the development agreement. If they started construction, the city would sponsor the rezone per the development agreement to low-impact transitional overlay. Yes.
Okay, so low-impact and I read through the definitions and I linked over to the codes, but just briefly, for the sake of this meeting, would you, Mr. Eggett, give a brief description of what you can do in a low-impact zone as far as a developer? What can go in there? I mean, and I know shopping centers are not. I say that tongue-in-cheek based off of the comments from the planning commission meeting. But anyway, if you would just articulate some of the activities that can happen in a low-impact transition zone, please. Thank you.
Yeah, low-impact transition overlay zone is meant to be, just like it says, it's a downzoning between more of an intense residential or commercial development. And so what you'll typically see in there are professional offices for real estate or a lawyer or medical. And also you'll see assisted living care or elderly care or special needs care facilities, those type of things. But all requested uses are subject to a development agreement with the city council, a development agreement approval, and subject to the terms of that approval. And then there's some other specific standards within the LIT zone that need to be met in order for that to be accomplished. One instance of an LIT zone that's currently in place is actually the city's senior center. That is in an LIT zone. So if you want to see a working area where that zone exists, that is one of them. So because those types of uses are very specific and they provide assurances and actually additional benefits per development agreement to developers, they're a really good fit for the LIT use when you're talking about assisted living, elderly care, special needs care. But again, they have more broad uses for medical and other types of offices. So hopefully in a nutshell that explains it without going into more detail, but it's a little more involved than that, but that's the basics of it.
Okay, thank you. Where I'm going with this is, I don't know if it's going to pass or not, Mr. Yates. By the way, I do support the rezone on this, and I'll tell you why I support it, is because I am an advocate for owner-occupied, whether it's a commercial or it's residential. And as opposed to having an apartment complex of 300 units that's full of renters. So you mentioned, Mr. Yates, in Planning Commission that you were doing townhomes that would be owner-occupied, and which I'm an advocate of, because it is. And I think we're going to be going into a meeting later talking about the moderate income housing, or is it medium income housing that I think this would be a good fit for. And it was brought out by Councilman Arnold in a previous meeting that there's a certain demographics. Now, I don't know where he got his information from, but he stated that Riverdale's demographics is getting older, and we need to bring in school-age children, and because we're being hurt with the legislature because of the people that would live in such a development would be inclined to be more younger because it's more of a starter type of a home. Now, it's in that regard that I support this rezone. Now, that said, I really like the idea of having whatever goes there to be owner occupied. Now, around the corner on 1500 are those businesses where they're like a co-op where they can have a business like an HVAC business, and they own the facility in a co-op fashion, something like that. I don't know what, you'd have to kind of work with Mr. Eggett to find what type of development works that is that would work with the zoning and whatnot. But I really like the idea of owner occupied of whatever versus putting a bunch of rentals. Mr. Eggett, on this map is a little nip in the bottom right corner. Is that the property that the city purchased for the home, for the widening of Ritter Drive?
Yes, it is. Yeah, it is.
Okay, so hypothetically, now I don't know that it would be appropriate to ask what the plans are for the city and if they're going to develop something special or different, or if they want to tie in. Oh my goodness, am I losing? Can I still be heard?
We can hear you.
We can hear you.
Okay, my computer is being really difficult. And so, I mean, this would be a good transition or overlay, or to be a part of this or sell it. I don't know. Anyway, that's a topic for another time. But also, I have a question. As we were in the process, the city was in the process of purchasing that home, Mr. Worthen talked about a long, narrow piece of property, 5 feet wide, 8 feet wide, and I'm assuming that's on one of these. Did we, the city, buy any of that property from that gentleman? Do you recall? Does that make sense, Mr.
Yeah, I think you're referencing a very narrow strip of Coleman holding, which is kind of in a weird location. I think we just acquired. Now that you say that, maybe we did acquire the whole strip. I know we had to get some frontage for the road.
We did buy the whole piece of property.
We did, Cody?
Correct.
Okay, so yes, there you go, Bart. We did.
Okay, so the part of the LIT that I'm looking at then is city property.
Well, there's a little narrow strip. It's right next to where it says agriculture A1 zone, and it's between where I've done a black outline. It's really skinny. That's the strip we're talking about. It's actually still an A1 zone. It's just to the right.
Okay, so then this development or this rezone, I'm sorry, excuse me a second, does not impact that strip that the city purchased. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Excuse me a second. Okay, all right, but potentially that home that wasn't used for the widening of the road and that strip could be assimilated into whatever development Yates's and Barlow's and Polson's are doing, hypothetically.
That certainly is an option.
Okay, all right, good. All right. Now, let me go, let's see. The concern is anytime there, a new topic, anytime there is something happening on Ritter Drive, there are going to be citizens who are going to speak out against it. And some of them are maybe legitimate. Some of them are, I guess, historically, I would have agreed. I think a lot of those concerns have been mitigated. Any public street has, of course, any degree of risk. And so I'm just curious, has Mr. Eggett, have any of those people who have concerns, other than complaining to you, have they come in and said, this is the best use that we think is for this property? Where I'm going with this is, they can get, instead of reacting and being behind the 8 ball, from my perspective, they can get in front of the curve and say, this is what we would like to have there, because as it's been stated before, this is private property. And as long as things are developed within the zoning, they can proceed with it. And, against whatever howls and complaints and whatever people say. And I think this could be, I don't know if you'd ever want to say a win-win, but getting the complainers from a Ritter Drive and say, what are you expecting to happen with this land? Do you think it's going to be open space, or do you think that it's just going to stay? I mean, because they complain about it being an eyesore. They complain about the potential traffic. They complain about the rubbish. They complain, and it's like, okay, so we know you complain, but what do you want? Because it is private property, and if the Yates aren't working to develop it, somebody else is going to, because it's too valuable, and its land is in short supply. And so I think it would be a good idea to invite some of those people in to say, what do you want to have happen that is, will meet some of your criterias and concerns? Now, anyway, that's just a comment on my part to try to, it's becoming a one-note samba of listening every time something comes up, the same issues. And yet, Ritter Drive, a lot of money went in to get it up to speed, and I think it's got a lot of going for it. All right, I've lost my screen. Gosh darn it, did it go out again? I don't know. Okay, if you can still hear me, then at this point, I'm just going to step away. I have some more things, but go ahead.
We can see also, Bart.
Oh, okay. Then, let me just look at my notes here just for a second. Okay. That's all I have for this at this point. Thank you.
Thank you, Bart. Any other comments for Mr. Eggett or Mr. Yates?
I do, Mayor.
Go ahead.
First of all, I wanted to commend Melissa Carey for her comments in the Planning Commission meeting, as well as Mrs. DeShaw. But Melissa Carey was very well prepared, very well spoken. I also, in this particular issue, we've dealt with this property for 10 years, as Bart has mentioned, and it hasn't been taken with any care whatsoever, which is an issue. It was even brought up in the Planning Commission, and listening to the Planning Commission, the recording of the Planning Commission, they have a job to do, and they did it very well. I can't speak to what was agreed to 10 years ago with predecessors and previous planning commissions and council meetings, but the planning commission is brought together to look at guidance, which is the general plan. They looked at the general plan and it doesn't fit the general plan. So not only, I mean, this isn't a whimsical, this is what I feel, this is what I see, or whatever. The planning commission actually did their job, looked at the guidelines that were actually put forth for the city in the general plan, and they made the ruling based as Amy Aspires put in her letter. The decision was made with facts. It wasn't made with what I see or what I'm going to do. It was actually made with facts, and I believe that there's not very many things that come through the planning commission that are a unanimous no, which is what we got in this time. And when we go through that neighborhood, when you cross the street, you have one piece of property, and then you cross the street. We had 10 acres right there that put in 40 homes on a 4-to-1 ratio, 4 homes to an acre. We're talking about putting 20 homes per acre on this particular sale on this development, and there's not a single thing with the city that this fits where it's fitting. I think even Mr. Yates is saying, this is a last ditch effort for their investment, and I said it with the Coleman development. It's not about investment. It's about creating a harmonious environment in a city. When you put 100 homes on 5 acres in that area, again with the topography, even though it is a good spot, it has 2 entrances in the plan. It doesn't fit there, and I think the planning commission should be commended on holding. I mean, they're basically a volunteer group with the city. I mean, they get paid a stipend for their internet or something like that, and they did their job, and it was very well thought out, and it was we shouldn't be going, this is what I think, this is what I see. If we're going to do something like this, we should take the general plan for the city in a strategic planning meeting and relook at it, but you don't just change it in a city council meeting after the planning commission, who is our watchdog guardian, sends it to us with a non-favorable. So there is not a chance that I'll be voting for this Hail Mary of a proposal that is against everything that the city is doing.
Thank you, Mr. Arnold. Any other comments or questions?
Can I comment on a couple of those items?
Sure.
I asked Melissa Carey at that meeting in between the sessions what she would like to see there. And we were going over a bunch of different options. Would you like us to do this? Would you like us to do that? We went over a bunch of things, and her comment was, I think I'd like it to just stay the way it is. So, that's not really possible, and so we couldn't get any direction there. She was primarily concerned about her view. The traffic is, if anything, reduced. The general plan was basically, what I was saying earlier is, in my, I guess you could say legal opinion, the general plan was made inapplicable when it was 2/3 of it was zoned LIT. So that's a higher zoning than what we're asking for. We're basically down zoning it according to your general plan. And so that was we're going from 35 units an acre down to, 15. So it's less than half, and it's been well thought out of. When I say a last ditch effort, that's not really what I mean. We've well thought this out. We had multiple drawings done that I didn't produce, but we scrapped all the apartment buildings. We went with what was the most thoughtful that we thought would fill a need for the city, which was owner occupied. If you look at those plans, they're well done by a really competent architect. So it wasn't just thrown together. What I mean is after 4 years of fighting something and delaying this request that should have happened 2 years ago, we're down to, the final hours is all I'm saying. This has been thought of for over a year. We just didn't come forward because we knew some of this pushback that we would get, and we were trying to do everything we could to fulfill our other obligation that we had that I tried to explain in that letter. So anyway, hopefully that answers some of those questions. I know it won't. It's probably not going to change your vote, but anyway.
Thank you, Mr. Yates. Any other questions or comments?
Mayor?
Go ahead, Mr. Mitchell.
I just wanted to tell the Yates that in reading this, I didn't realize some of the struggles they'd been through, and I do really, my heart goes out to him.
Thank you.
It's a way worse situation than I realized, I've been involved in some investments that went kind of bad, nothing to this degree, even close. And I really feel bad, and I'd love the city to be able to find some way to help you. But I'm kind of in the middle somewhere. I feel like, if we were to rezone it, we have to always look at the impacts of what that could happen down the road. I mean, if you decided to not do that and do something different, then we're stuck with that zone all of a sudden. And that really concerns me because I feel like the assisted living was a good fit for that area, but I don't feel like some of the things allowed in R4 are a great fit for that area. And so that really gives me some reservations. Councillor Stevens mentioned that owner-occupied is good, and I'm always a big fan of the owner-occupied. But over the years, I've asked our attorney several times if that's something we can mandate, and I believe that there's no way that we can mandate that. No way that it can be made owner-occupied. Anybody could come in, an investment group, anybody could come and buy those things and rent them right out. I don't know. Steve, are you on? I mean, can you comment on that?
Yeah, oh, you're right, Braden. I mean, we can state that all we want, but eventually if somebody decides to go another route, I don't any legal remedy that we could stop it. So you are stuck on that.
So that's another concern I have. And I kind of agree with Councillor Arnold that the Planning Commission really did a good job on it. I feel like that is their job, is to look at it, make sure it meets, the general plan, make sure it meets what the intent of the city and the codes are. And so anyway, I mean, I want to work with you and find a way to help you because I really do feel for your situation. It looks really rough. And I'm not saying give up and don't try and do anything, but I'm just not sure going to R4 is the solution. And I would hope that there's some other solution for you guys. I'll just leave it at that.
Any other comments, questions? Do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion. Although I do have a question for Steve. It seems odd to me that we would be doing an ordinance to not pass this. What does that mean? How come there's two ordinances written? Because if it's denied, wouldn't it just stay the same?
Yeah, I think you can just do that if you want to take that action. I just, as a matter of formality, I threw in, I didn't want to, influence anybody one way or another. But if you just wanted to confirm the Planning Commission's non-recommendation, you can go ahead and do that way. You wouldn't have to follow that per se. Because it's not, I mean, normally we'd only do an ordinance because we're going to change stuff. That's more binding. But where we're not doing anything, you're going to deny it. I think you could just do the motion and leave it at that. You'd be fine.
Okay. So I would move to deny this or make a motion to deny this request and follow the planning commission's recommendation.
Second.
Who is the second?
Braden.
Braden.
Braden. Okay, we got a motion. We got a second by Councilor Mitchell. I'm still going to ask Ms. Evans to poll the council on this.
Councilmember Mitchell?
Aye.
Councilmember Arnold?
Aye.
Councilmember Hilton?
His mic's muted. Aye.
Okay. Councilmember Stevens?
Nay.
Councilmember Ellis?
Aye.
Okay, 4 in favor. Opposed, is that correct? Motion carries. Okay, move on to action item number 4. Discussion, consideration to approve the 2021 annual city council calendar. Ms. Evans.
So I have the stuff that we talked about during the work session already edited. So if we want to talk about it later, we can, or we can honestly, if you just want to email me changes, but I pretty much have the first and third Tuesday of every month.
Okay, that's, but March we changed, remember?
Yes.
Can we table this and work on it like Shaylee, like said, put it out to an email?
Well,
That'd be the best way to handle that.
You want to make a motion to table it?
Move to table. Oh, Braden's.
I just had a question for Bill real quick.
Yes, sir.
Hey, Bill, in my email, I asked you to bring it up with the department heads and kind of get back from them. I'm just curious how that went, what they're feeling. Because this really is purely like, I mean, I'm okay doing it on Saturdays, but they would rather do it that way. I'm not saying we have to do it on Tuesday. It was just something that I was curious if people would like to do it on Tuesdays.
Yeah, the preference resoundingly from the staff was in favor of moving it to a regular weekday evening. My comment was back to you with regard to that was that in other places I've been, Saturday seemed to be convenient because it was just a couple of hours. I didn't realize that we did marathon meetings on Saturdays and went for several hours on these sessions. And so having a later afternoon or evening meeting actually makes a little more sense because everybody wants to get the meeting done and get out of there. So that was the consensus, and I'm definitely in favor of that.
Bill, they used to take all day. Cody's got it down where it takes about 4 hours. We're usually done by noon and gone. So not that that makes a difference, but just so you're aware of that. Yeah, some time ago, yeah, they took a good share of the day. We had lunch and they went on for a long time, but Cody is really streamlined. It has all his ducks in line, and they go fairly good. But I can see either way. I'm fine either way with how the council wants to go.
I still like lunch.
Yeah, sure.
I've subscribed to the philosophy that it takes a pretty good meeting to beat no meeting at all. And the shorter meetings are always the better meetings because they are concise. But I do think that it's worthwhile to take the time to have these meetings and to discuss where everybody wants to be with everything. And staff will have everything prepared and ready to go to take counsel from the council regarding goals and plans and priorities. And so we'll look forward to that on an evening meeting.
Okay, did we have a motion, still motion to table? Did we have a second?
Second.
Mayor, can I say something real quick?
Steve.
This is one of those weird things. I don't want to be a stick in the mud, but I always am. So I think by state code, we have to get this done. So what I would recommend we do, if you're okay, at least past the January 5th and the 19th days, if you're okay with those, and then go ahead and table it. And we can just list this. Those 2 days would be done. We have to give the public notice. And I think we're going to be in trouble if we tabled it, unless we at least posted those 2 days, and then we can put to be determined on the other ones. You see what I'm saying? Alan, did you make that motion? If you could just fit that in there, something like that.
You know, if we could, I think I would move that we have our meetings, council meetings, on the first and third Tuesdays of the month, and make at the discretion and the posting that we do the notification to the public, make them strategic planning meetings as necessary. And I think we can be done with this because it's pretty well taken care of, you know, with the way we're set up. So I think removing the Saturday meetings and having strategic planning meetings in place of a council meeting when we put it out to the public, I think that's basically what we're doing, isn't it?
How about our meeting on March 2nd?
Yeah, we have a meeting on March 2nd on schedule. So
that was for that to look at the finances for the cliff.
Right.
Yeah.
Correct. But as we put the meeting out, when Shaylee puts the agenda out, we've already scheduled the meeting for March 2nd, and so when the agenda comes out, it would be for the 2030 plan meeting as opposed to a council meeting, and it would just be notified public notice just like normal.
Then go ahead and add the other meeting on the 30th later.
The 30th? Okay. If needed on the 30th of March. Great.
How many's in favor of doing that, or would you rather see it all on the schedule? Okay, Mr. Hilton's okay with it. That's 2. Alan?
Good.
Got Bart, or, yeah, I got 4 thumbs up, so let's go ahead and do that. For first and third, unless it's notified differently, okay? You okay with that? All right. So the motion to table, do you want to rescind that, or?
Yeah, I changed the motion to put it with the first and third Tuesdays of each month.
Okay, we have a second?
Second.
Okay, we had second from Counselor Mitchell. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? There was the one change on election date. You want to get that one right first, because it's not on the, it's on the first one.
All right, with the exception of election on November 3rd.
Yeah.
Second agrees.
Are we going to have a primary that we might need to adjust in August?
We usually don't. We just do that on election day, I think. Do we need it for the primary?
Or put that in as flexible?
Yeah, we could change it if we need to, I think.
I'm fine with that in the motion.
Second agrees.
Okay. All in favor?
I'm thinking we're going to have a robust election season.
Aye.
Well,
Did we have any all eyes?
could be busy. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? It's unanimous in favor, first and third, except for election day in November, is that right?
And possibly August.
Possibly August, yeah, okay.
But we can change it with any notice, so.
Okay, and then action item 5 was deleted, just for the record. It's already been taken care of in another action item, I think action item 1. Move on next to discretionary items for the city council members. Do we have any discretionary business? Mr. Stevens. Go ahead. I can't hear you, Bart. Anybody hear him?
Nope.
Just go ahead.
There you go. We hear you now.
Okay. All right. I'm having some issues. I think I need to reload the software for WebEx or something. But anyway, hopefully, Mr. Agate, you will have conversations with Mr. Yates and his group to find, because if he doesn't do it, somebody else will. That is going to be developed to some fashion, and it might as well be him, because he's got a lot invested there, both emotionally and financially. And so hopefully there can be some discussions as to what's reasonable and what's realistic, and hopefully something can be salvaged for that section, and it just as well be Mr. Yates as somebody with a more aggressive attitude and a business plan. And so hopefully, Mr. Agate, you'll be able to have some conversations with that group. Thank you.
That's a good comment, Bart. Thank you. I hope that takes place. I hope there is some more discussion. So, any other discretionary? Okay, we do have a motion to adjourn the city council meeting.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, Councilor Mitchell, Councilor Arnold seconds. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Meeting's adjourned. We'll move next to our RDA meeting, Riverdale City RDA meeting, Tuesday, December 15th, 2020. We thank you for being here, and we'll now call this meeting to order. All board members are present, as are members of the RDA staff. Still got a lot of background noise. Do we have any public comment this evening? Know of anything, Miss Evans?
No, so I don't have any emails and nothing on the YouTube, and you're not gonna, yeah. Nope, that's it.
Okay. Move on to presentation reports, none. Consent items, consideration to approve the meeting minutes, June 16th, 2020, the RDA meeting. Any changes or corrections to those minutes? Seeing none, do we have a motion to approve the consent item?
So moved. So moved.
Okay, we got a Councilor Mitchell. Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, Councilor Ellis seconds. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? All in. Okay, it's unanimous in favor. Move on to the action items. Discussion, consideration to approve 2021 annual RDA calendar. I think in our work session, I suggested we just make it like we have in the past, the third Tuesday of each month. Is there any change or discussion on that after you've looked at it? We have a motion then.
Move to approve Mayor's suggestion of the third Tuesday of each month as needed.
Okay, Councilor Arnold motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Who was the second?
Hilton.
Okay, we've got a motion. We got a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Unanimous in favor. Do we have any discretionary business for this meeting? Seeing none, do we have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Have a motion, we have a second.
Getting out of here.
Ed Ellis, and who else? Mitchell? You can take your
Sure.
pick, Shaylee.
Doesn't matter.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Meeting's adjourned.